Hi and welcome to this week's episode of Business Stuff Podcast. I'm here again with Jack from the Accelerator team.
Back again, yeah, you've let me back.
Yeah, and this week, after a week off, we sent him away, made him worry that he wasn't coming back on, but he's back.
Yeah.
He's fought his way back onto the team. We're talking this week about fraud. So an important topic for a lot of businesses. Most businesses have money involved somewhere, Jack. They're selling stuff for money, usually.
Yes, they are.
So, and fraud can be something that can basically bring down a business, can't it?
Yeah, and it's been interesting over the past few weeks how I've had a couple of clients come to me with instances of fraud. So it's very much rife at the moment, and you're right, it can be completely debilitating.
It's easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say, yeah.
The classic joke there from Roddy. So it's probably important then, Jack, to start with. Most people think, it'll never happen to me. It'll never happen. I'm fine. Never mind. But often it can be the person closest to you, or it can be the least person you'd expect. But before we get into that, what's the main types of fraud then? What are the things that people fall
you've kind of touched on it there, in the sense that there are lots of ways that fraud can get into the business, and we kind of can split it up into kind of external methods of fraud and internal, where people within the business, as you said, can actually rob you potentially. Yeah. But if we kind of look at the external kind of side of the external stuff to start off with, these are the kind of standard terminology you might see in the Financial Times, or hear it on news outlets and stuff. You've got like pyramid schemes, not to be confused with multi-level marketing. For legal reasons, obviously, we don't want to get the lawyers involved. Then we're going to get sued.
But there is a difference as well. I mean, there's some FTSE 250 companies are basically multi-level marketing. Mm-hmm. Not pyramid scheme is a totally different thing. It's there is no product, no service. Often it's just a way to steal money, isn't it?
Yeah.
Often glossed up as a thing. But so you got pyramid, Ponzi, did he say?
Ponzi schemes as well, yeah. So I don't know if you've been watching the Tinder swindler recently on Netflix.
No, it's on my list, but no.
Yeah, so I've been watching it, and that's a classic Ponzi scheme where a guy's on Tinder is grooming various women to pay for his lifestyle, and then he's using their money to fund.
So victim number one pays for the next one, almost. Is that the way?
It's just a cycle, and so that happens a lot in businesses, and that was a big part of the financial.
So this was Jordan
Belford,
Wolf of Wall Street, wasn't it? There was like massive multi-billion-dollar.
Bernie
Madoff was one. Yeah. Okay, and so we've got pyramid, Ponzi.
Another classic one, which probably May is more familiar with. Smaller businesses is phishing, where you'll get a speculative email from a director of the business who says, "Oh, can you pay this supplier urgently £4,000?" And then that's what you do straight away. You get a legit kind of email thinking, "Oh, well, it must be from them."
And that's normally linked to IT, isn't it? It's normally not from that person, but looks like it, or often can be from that person if you've been hacked. If your IT's been infiltrated, then it will look like an actual instruction. So, okay then, what else have we got then?
And then another one, which is kind of quite a wide topic, is kind of impersonation, where similar to phishing, but you've heard examples before of people being tricked into transferring all of their money into a secure bank account by their bank because they've been told that their account's been compromised. And very much, I think you had an experience yourself. Was it last week or this week, where someone was pretending to be yourself?
People would like to be me all the time, and people pretend to be, but no, it happens. I mean, we regularly get emails internally that look to be from someone else in the organisation. So one of our tax team today has forwarded something off to IT, where it looks like actually with the payroll department have received an instruction from the tax team asking them to change where their pay goes. Classic, so luckily we like to keep an eye on these things, but that could easily have gone, and someone could have not got paid at the end of the month. And
these can be really sophisticated. Some of them are quite crude, and it's clear if you even just look at the email address, it's quite obviously suspicious at the very least. But some of them are very well kind of drafted, and there may be a slight change in the email address. The way that it's kind of been worded might be very convincing. So some people just look at it and go, "That seems legit." Bang.
Yeah. But also you've got to remember that people they're impersonating aren't always themselves sending sophisticated, smart emails with well-structured sentences.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with some of the emails you send me.
A lot of people don't actually have proper structure to what they do. So just to get an email saying send the money over to this account, great, Tao.
Yeah.
That could be how a lot of people speak, which is presumably works for them. So
that's why they get the success. Yeah,
because they wouldn't do it if it wasn't getting success, would it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay then. So what else?
So I mean, that's kind of the main kind of external ones.
Yeah.
But if we turn our attention onto the internal side of things,
because most people think, well, we're sorted there. The inside job, though, that's the one. That's the exciting one, isn't it?
Definitely. And it's with technology, things have progressed beyond the point where fraudulent transactions aren't just somebody coming in and nicking some money out of the petty cash or.
It's not physical theft in the same way now, is it? Although I suppose it could be, but we're not talking about that today.
Well, that will probably get covered as well, in terms of how you can prevent it, and those are probably a little bit more straightforward because it's just the sense of making sure that those kind of assets are secured. But with technology becoming more sophisticated, it's very much the case of there are new and better ways of committing fraud. Well, better is probably not the right word to be saying. Sounds like I'm advocating it.
Lighter work. Yeah. You don't have to physically do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it can be as simple as just going onto an accounting system, changing some bank details of a supplier to the person who's changed it, and that can get away with it. People are running big BACS runs at the end of the month or, during their usual accounts payable routine, and they're not going to notice that
And this sounds crazy, doesn't it? But we do see clients and we help clients identify this type of thing where if you've got 400 employees on a payroll across 20 sites across the country, the payroll clerk probably won't know everybody. It's different to just a small little, tidy little business. But if you've got multitudes of people all over the place, adding a fake employee on with a dummy bank account without the right controls could be quite easy to do.
Yeah,
even easier just to go on and change. Oh well, we buy loads of stuff from Burrells. I'll change the bank account so we don't pay Burrells next month.
Yeah.
And then you hide their chaser the month after, and it can go on for months. And you see it all the time in the news, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see, various accounts team staff living the life of Riley, off the back of some very generous suppliers that they're getting paid on behalf of.
Or very lax employers.
Well, very true. But I mean, the case of setting up fake suppliers, fake employees. I mean, I think a lot of payroll software now has become a bit more sophisticated, where it's a lot harder to create fake employees, but it's not impossible, especially again if the controls that you're operating in are not lax and the payroll's calculated on the back of a fag packet basically. And that, in which case, it's you can create as many employees.
Because if you've got a proper recruitment policy, you should be doing things like the right to work anyway, checking people's IDs, checking their actual identity. You should be doing that when you take someone on anyway.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, you're just leaving yourself more open to losing money somewhere, aren't you?
Yeah, totally. And and I suppose other ways of getting around it are just kind of padding out your expenses, stuff like that. And if there's no robust systems in place, it's like, oh, can you just pay me this because I did a load of miles the other day to some client.
Yeah.
And be like, all right, fine. Yeah.
And if you're not looking at those expense claims, then you're almost inviting it, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think we I'm not sure they're a client, but an example I recall from maybe 25 years ago now was a solicitor who, as part of legal aid, would claim mileage to go back and forwards to court. What they would actually do is turn up at court in the morning and go home at night. But because they saw something like 6 or 8 or however many, let's say clients, but criminals or whatever, whoever it was they were seeing, they would log their claim to the legal aid board as 8 round trips. They actually only did 1 round trip. And you might think, a couple of quid, but it's a couple of quid 8 times a day for years.
Yeah.
It adds up, these things snowball. And they're often very hard to find, the very little bits, but if you look at the wider pattern, they had one person claiming 8 times the mileage of the person doing the same job. It should have stood out a mile, really.
And I suppose that's the thing we need to really consider, is that when you see the headlines about these big internal frauds, it's person got away with £500,000.
It's not someone walking out with like 6 duffel bags of money, is it?
It's not a one-off transaction they've done, and it's the case that they've been doing it for a number of years.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get away with if you're not actually keeping an eye on it.
So a lot of people out there may be thinking, well, look, there's only me in the business, so if I'm getting robbed from it, it's because I fell victim to external fraud.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a lot of people who then think, well, how do I make sure my money isn't with a business that doesn't have the right controls? And this is why people like solicitors and estate agents and anyone who handles people's money have got external auditors who make sure that they're doing things right, don't they?
Yeah, we deal with obviously solicitors and we deal with insurance brokers, and they all have some kind of obligation if they're holding client money to show that they look after it and they keep it separate so that they're not.
So if they go bust, they don't lose your money for the house you are going to buy.
Mm-hmm. And they've got some pretty robust rules in place to stop you from basically going, you've just given us 20 grand, and then just going, brilliant, well, I'm just going to go and buy myself, we're just going to go on holiday now with that.
Buy literally anything.
And then when it comes, if it's for a conveyancing, for example, they go, well, where's that 20 grand deposit again?
Where's the deposit? When this is where you get into Ponzi, isn't it? Because the next deposit that comes in buys your house.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they manage to, you kick these things down the line quite a lot when you have no scruples.
Yeah.
What else have we got then, Jack, on the internal stuff? Because we talked about people padding expenses, false suppliers, false employees.
I'm sure there are lots of other examples of it, but in terms of just general embezzlement, and I suppose that we're probably speaking to a lot of business owners here who may be quite lax with, what is considered a business expense, in terms of, you might have a couple of tickets to the football where you take your son or your wife or your daughter, and they go and watch that every weekend, but it goes through the business because that's a business expense. Yeah. Technically, that's embezzlement, and that sounds like a big nasty word.
It's interesting there as well, because you might say, well, who cares if it's only my money that I'm losing?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, because if you've got a limited company as well, and the company gets into trouble, insolvency practitioners look and say, well, what did the company do with its money? Did it use its money properly? And if it didn't, we're going to come to the directors for anything that shouldn't have been lost. Yeah. So actually, it's not just, well, it's my own stupidity. If I lose my own money, who cares? It's not as simple as that, is it?
Yeah.
If you leave HMRC or a pocket or a supplier because you couldn't handle your basic money functions, then you'll be asked to repay those debts even if the company goes down, won't you?
Yeah, and I suppose another thing to think about as well, and this person will remain nameless, but they were trying to sell their business, and they weren't particularly happy because they were agreeing on a multiplier of profit. But then they came back and said, well, actually, if we're looking at the accounts that they're basing it on, I've actually put £30,000 worth of costs in there in relation to my house renovation.
Which shouldn't be in
there. So it's like you basically admitted that you've embezzled £40,000 worth of stuff. Yeah. And unfortunately, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
There is no cake there, so we don't condone anything like that.
No, but you can't have get the tax relief of these additional dubious expenses, and then also want to have an increase.
Also want to sell the profit that you didn't show. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So
there was a lot of that in the self-employed income support scheme payments.
Yes.
The forms were absolutely full of self-employed people saying, "Well, I've only got £800." Oh, well, hold on then. 800 quid is 80% of a quarter's income. That means you've only declared £4,000 of profit last year. But if you only make £4,000, 800 quid's not bad for a quarter, So there was a lot of people who were flushed out, and they realised that maybe they shouldn't have been hiding all their profit. But we're slightly off topic there, because that's the business owner committing fraud. if you're in business, then how do you prevent these things from happening?
So there's a few areas to consider. First of all, and we've touched on this quite a bit already, is the controls. So again, if you're a one-man band and you're less susceptible to have internal fraud where the controls are important, and that's just a case if you just need to be mindful about.
Because you would only pay your own stuff that you ordered.
Exactly.
And you would have met the employee who works for you. It's less likely to happen in a very small environment.
Yeah, but when you're expanding the team out and you may have an admin function of some sort, then it's really important to have these controls in place. So it's talking about kind of separation of duty, and this is as simple as having one, or at least having two separate people doing bits of jobs. So like opening the post, where there may be some checks in there, for example, and someone who does the banking, to make sure that anything that gets opened in the post, make sure it gets into the bank account eventually.
Yeah, because if you've got one person who makes all your payments, maintains your bank account, sends all your invoices, do all of these things, it's easy for them to hide the chasers for the bill they didn't pay because they've diverted the payment.
Yeah.
So it's harder to hide something like that without you then need the original criminal and an accomplice.
Yeah.
But that doesn't tend to happen. These are normally sole operators, aren't they, where this happens?
Yeah, when they've got the freedom.
Because they've been allowed to get away with it because of the freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just having those kind of systems in place. I mean, even if you've just got a bookkeeper and they're doing backs runs, making sure that you're approving them and just going through them, going, are these genuine?
Yeah.
Another thing is obviously having a really robust kind of authorization procedure in place, because we've talked about phishing, and that's generally how stuff gets through the gaps when people are lazy and they go, well, yeah, they obviously meant that. But if you get a suspicious email like that, you've got to get on the phone and just be like, I've just had this email. It's 10 seconds at the end of the day where they can go, yes, that was me.
Yeah.
But you're potentially saving thousands of pounds.
But also, so talking about there about authorization as well. This is where we talk about then, purchase order, kind of systems.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want something, I can't just jump on Amazon and order it and expect someone to pay it. We have an internal system where I say, well, I want this. I ask someone else to order it for me, and then there's a couple of people in the finance team who make sure that it comes in. We actually get it, and we pay for it. And it sounds complex, but in a business more than a couple of people in size, you can build those functions in relatively straightforwardly, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's not arduous. We're not saying there needs to be some kind of complicated kind of map of authorizations when if there's a certain limit then it has to go to here, Yeah.
I mean, that might be an appropriate thing in certain businesses, but
definitely as it gets larger and there's more layers to the management, then that becomes more applicable. But as a very minimum, if you and a bookkeeper, or one member of staff, then that seems like really important things to do, is to build these appropriate structures in, as and when they're needed. I suppose the other thing as well is building in audit trails as well. So if stuff does go wrong, there's an understanding of
where it went wrong.
On whose watch was it, who was involved in, who was in charge of putting in that transaction, who was in charge of reconciling the bank.
Because everything could go completely right at one end, but then, let's just say you've got a large business where they get big deliveries on trucks. The order might have been right, it might have been legitimately placed for a real business need, but the guy who takes the stuff off the truck took it off the truck but put it in his boot.
Yes.
But signed the receipt, signed to say, well, we got that.
Yeah.
Or did he? So, well, it was your job to sign to say we had that. Oh yeah, well, where is it? Where did he put it?
Yeah.
So again, an audit trail of just the basic functions of business is just, again, it's something you need in place, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's a lot of clients that I've dealt with back in the auditing days where the software they use, they're trying to save money, understandably, and that's why they'll only have one license or one login for their accounts package.
It's even better, yeah.
So
you can't tell who made the change.
Yeah, so it's just who did that transaction? Oh, admin did. Who's admin? Well, it could have been them. It could have been them. It could have been 8 or 9 different people.
Yeah. Who's got access to this? Well, everybody.
Yeah. Well, I leave it. It's in my office.
Nobody, just me. Well, the login is admin, and then the password is password. Yeah. I mean, that's like 90% of stuff comes like that, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's actually a post-it note on your computer screen next to it. So I'm pretty sure it's not as secure as you think it is.
So we're touching then on IT as well, which I think is an important part of this, isn't it? Because I've got a pal who works in IT security at relatively high level, and he said the biggest security risk in IT is what he calls the GUI blob operating the keyboard. The person who wrote the password down is the biggest gap here. But let's just assume you've got good people who aren't GUI blobs, for want of a better way of putting it. Then you need the right IT as well, don't you? So you need your spam filters, your stuff that'll spot the phishing attempts and all those things, don't you?
Yeah.
You've got to make sure your IT's secure.
Yeah, and that's down to having a decent bit of hardware and kind of scaling it up with the business. You can't be employing 10 or 15 people and everyone's got their own laptop.
Yeah.
That's when you need to start thinking about other solutions, more secure, investing in a universal kind of cyber security, and maybe looking at outsourcing it. And
it'd be really interesting to know how many businesses breached the GDPR requirements, because when everyone got sent home to work during COVID, they just went home and then started logging on at home on their own kit, their own devices.
Yeah.
Which won't have had the proper, virus protection on, won't have had the firewall protection on. But more staggeringly would have been literally a laptop that was then, used for 3 hours a day for teaching the kids. And this might sound like a privileged position, but you cannot really have a work device that's then just used for literally anything in a family, because if it's that open, you've got no idea who's done what when, do you?
Yeah, exactly, and that's another factor is kind of the dodgy browsing. I know where your mind's going on this one, so keep it out the gutter. But people like using torrenting sites and stuff like that, trying to get that dodgy link for the boxing or something, because you don't want to pay for the
That's not where I was going, but okay, I've caught up with you now.
But so we obviously that has implications in terms of where you're going on the internet, and if you haven't got the proper security in place, the firewalls, as you said, then that is ultimately going to be an issue.
Yeah.
And that means the next time you log on to your business account on that laptop, who knows what's going to happen or who's watching. Yeah.
So obviously these things normally happen in isolation. There's but with the right controls in and everything else, you can eliminate a lot of stuff. But also you need to operate in a culture where it's just not acceptable to do this as well, don't you? So you almost want, if there's 15 people in the room next door, which there is, you don't want them to sit and go, came up with a great idea how to fiddle my expenses. You want everyone else to go, no, it's not on. We don't do that here. We do things properly. So there's a lot of speaking about things like whistleblowing and reporting systems. You need to make sure there is a way that people can raise alarm, raise concern, and be taken seriously, don't you?
Yeah, totally. And a lot of industries, it's a legal requirement. You have solicitors again who have to have a money laundering reporting officer, within the as part of the firm that's attached to their kind of obligation as to the SRA, so they have to do that. Similarly, there needs to be similar kind of money laundering positions at insurance brokers. Anyone that's holding client money, they have to, but that's because they have to, but they're still, you're right, there needs to be a culture of where there needs to be zero tolerance, and it'd be quite difficult, because I can imagine the people that are going to uncover the frauds are generally going to be below the people that may be actually committing them. And at that point it becomes a bit of a...
Am I going to lose my job here if I spot this?
Yeah, who do I speak to? And then at which point you need a truly independent person within the business to be like, to take these complaints.
Often you can create a rod for your own back here as well, because let's say you've got a simple 3-person hierarchy here. You've got the business owner, a senior and a junior, whatever role, doesn't matter. If the business owner is playing loose with their own stuff, that could send a message to the others, just to say, well, you can do what you want, who cares? And I think often in business, everyone just assumes that everyone knows how business works. But if you're the junior there, you don't know that the guy, it's his money, so he can spend his money on how he wants.
Yeah.
He may just think, well, we all just work for this business. But he's taking a boot full of supplies home every night. Well, I'll just do the same. Yeah. It's quite hard, really. Like, you can't say, well, don't steal stuff, mind you, but can you put all that stuff in my car for us? It's like, so you gotta live and breathe by your own, by what you want other people to do as well, haven't you?
Yeah, do as I say rather than as I do.
Yeah. So I'm sure that crops up.
I suppose we probably possibly have to take some responsibility for that when it happens. We always talk about looking in the mirror before you look out the window, and if you're portraying someone who thinks it's okay to take stuff up, take some materials home at the end of the day, because you've got your conservatory to build or something like that.
Classic one, not fraud related, but anyone with kids knows how this goes. Anyone who's been a kid, so everyone knows how this goes. We weren't very happy that our eldest, when he was young, one of his first words was bugger. And we're like, oh, you shouldn't say that. And he went, but Granny does. So there you go. You know,
done.
People do just follow what they see in front of them or above them. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, what I mentioned before about this idea, it's not that people are getting away with stuff. It's that the people who control the money are letting them get away with it. That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not that you deserve to be attacked if you're showing a weakness, but one thing is for sure, you know, if this was, you know, if you were walking down a street and you saw 12 houses in the street and 11 had burglar alarms and massive dogs sitting in the windows, you would rob the one that had no alarm and no, you know, kind of no dog in the window, wouldn't you? So, you know, if your business is the one who doesn't have the bare minimum of basic controls, it's like, don't be surprised if someone takes advantage of that.
Yeah. Especially
in times when, I nearly said, you know, cost of living crisis. I'm conscious how much that's just in everyone's thing at the moment. But if you're a mean employer who treats everyone like crap, and then also has got wide open, you know, doors, like saying, well, you know, I'm busy just doing whatever I want, but and I'm going to treat you like crap. You're almost inviting that to kind of happen, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so.
It sounds a bit like victim blaming. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just
And this is my accountant head going, because it's something that's drilled in when we're always doing our training, in terms of when you're in a position where that whistleblowing culture isn't there, or that reporting mechanism isn't in place, then it's a case of, well, what do I need to do off my own back here? And that's when you need to start considering, well, I need to report this to someone independent. So that's when we're talking about getting in touch with, you know, the action fraud and the police.
Because you don't know where to report it to, do you?
Yeah.
You may report it to the very person who's in on it. Yeah.
And then nothing's going to happen. All you're going to do is find out you've lost your job. So then there's if you're part of it, affiliated with any memberships, like generally we're told with ever our accounting body that we're a member of, then we generally report to them, and they've got specialists.
Yeah. Well, the professions normally have specific reporting requirements where we have to report things.
Yeah.
We don't have an option. We have to report, or we risk losing our qualifications.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Jack, that's been great. I hope everyone's enjoyed, learned something from that. If you need any help, again, our specialist teams can help you put the controls in place. We can also make sure that your basic functions financially are being looked after. Larger businesses and regulated businesses need audits, but also any size business can have an audit. Might be overkill for some, but you know, if you want someone just to pop in and help you out, or someone to carry out a formal audit, very happy to do so. Thank you very much. See you next episode.